Hey guys, Chris at the Ultimate Recycler. I've been given the opportunity to pick up a heap of these fluoro lights. Now, they're not your average fluorescent light assembly. They're super industrial style. In fact, I think they're actually classed as explosive proof, or I think that's upside down, but I think it says flame proof somewhere. They're cast aluminium, but very heavy castings. Good heavy gauge steel shades, and the fluoro tubes are inside what looks like a glass tube. So they're in extremely solid heavy duty construction. They have a real industrial kind of look to them, and perhaps they were used in some sort of industrial situation. I'll see if I can roll it over and I'll have a look at the other side. They weigh about 25 kilos, so they're pretty heavy. Not drop it off the edge of the table, but they're Australian made by the look of that. They'd probably date to the maybe 60s. They're a nice hammer tone paint. Now, I've been offered around about between 20 and 30 of them. They're just about to be dumped, and I'm thinking, oh look, I'll grab one and do some checking. So I thought they're probably saleable. I don't know if we can convert them to run LED tubes. We probably should be able to, in which case they'd look really cool in a kind of a warehouse or industrial type place where you want some lighting that's sort of fitting with the era. But at the very least, there's going to be some good scrap in them. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to basically sacrifice this one. We'll scrap it out, we'll pull it apart, we'll see what's in it, see what value there is. That way, if I go and pick them all up, at least I know that I'll get a bit of value if I scrap them, assuming it's worthwhile, and that's what we're going to check now. Otherwise, they could be very, very saleable if we can fit an LED tube to them. So we'll make a start on this one, we'll pull it apart and we'll see what we can find. Alright, we'll make a start by taking this metal bracket off. It's bolted 2 bolts each side, so 4 each end. Now, I'm going to be interested in the scrap value of these things, but I also want to see if there's anything we can repurpose or any useful materials that are saleable on their own. Okay, that's got the bolts out. We should be able to get the cover off. And there we go. The cover weighs quite a lot. It's fairly heavy gauge steel, so we could certainly sell it as clean pressing steel, but we may be able to repurpose that if we decide to scrap all these. But the light assembly looks cooler now. It actually looks so much better without the reflector on there. So if nothing else, I think I'd be able to sell those just purely as industrial decoration or something. So that looks really sort of not only industrial but sort of sci-fi. It could be, perhaps could be a double-barreled lightsaber. So for all you Jedi Knights that have mastered a single-barrel lightsaber, here's the double one. And if that is a glass tube, it feels very thick. So look, yeah, that's cool. More than happy to try one of those in the shop purely as a decorative piece. But anyway, we'll keep scrapping with this one. This is our sacrificial one, and we'll see if we get actually much scrap out of it and see if those glass tubes come out in one piece. Now, speaking of sacrificing, just look at these screws that go in here. I initially thought they were Allen screws, but they're not. They're square shank ones, and I don't have a square driver, so I found an old Phillips head one here that I think that will work fine. I'll just get the grinder and square off the end on it. Sacrifice this one. It's pretty worn out at the end anyway, and obviously quite rusty. So we'll make a tool to suit these, and if I'm going to scrap a lot more of them, obviously I'm going to need a tool to do it quickly, and this should fit in the drill. So I'll get the grinder out and fix that one up now. And there we go. We have our very own industrial fluoro specialised removal dismantle tool. Now I've just noticed in moving this, the glass tubes actually swivel, so it might even just come apart how it is. So they are loose in the housing here, but I guess they're wired in somehow so they don't just kind of pop out. I suspect I'll need to take these two housings off the end here and disconnect something. Okay, I've just removed these housings. These are cast aluminium as well. They've got a spring in there which obviously holds the fluoros tight in the assembly, and the starter mechanisms are at the end of the fluoro. So they look like they're standard fluorescent tubes, which means that we should be able to actually retrofit them with LEDs, which is great. So we'll take the tube out of this one, and we'll take tubes out of both, and then we should be able to take this assembly off the end of the glass protective tubes and just see exactly how thick they are. So this dismantles very easily, and I think the housing now should pretty well just come away. Be hard to do this one-handed. Oh, there we go. And they've pulled out of the other end as well. So they're just a neat fit in the ends. They've got a metal type ferrule on the end with a rubber O-ring to seal it. So we can't quite get in to see the thickness of the glass at this stage. But this housing will come straight off then, and it's another big, good, heavy chunk of cast aluminium. So once we get these pulled out of the other assembly, we will finish opening that up. There's only 1 and 2 screws left, and we'll see what's inside there. So just one more screw to take out of this housing. And we'll see what's inside here. Okay. Well, it's certainly a heavy housing. For aluminium, it still weighs a lot, so it's a very thick, strong housing. We've got obviously a bit of wiring, a large capacitor, yeah, not just a big connector block in there, and another connector block here. That must be like a ballast transformer behind that plate. We'll get that out in a tick. And where the wiring comes in through these fittings, it looks like it was enclosed in copper pipe. See, it's been cut off, and there's 2 copper cores in there and then some insulating type material. So I guess the wiring had to be flame proof as well. It's pretty pointless having a light that can handle flames and explosives and your wiring just melts and burns. So clearly it would have been copper cased. So that won't matter. As far as reusing goes, I'll be able to put a grommet or something there, take those fittings out and run normal wiring into it. Alright, let's get this plate off here and have a look at the ballast behind that. Oh yeah, we've got 2 ballasts obviously because there was 2 tubes. So yeah, well, they weigh quite well. They're good paying scrap those. They pretty well go as transformers, which I think is about 60 to 70 cents a kilo now. So anyway, we'll chop all these out. We'll get together all our scrap materials and we'll see what value we actually get out of it. So after dismantling this light, it's now time to work out what its value is for scrap. I'm going to see the guy in a couple of days, and I'd like to grab all of them after having a look at this, because I reckon I can retrofit LEDs to them and either sell them, or I might even take a couple home to my shed. They're really cool. Anyway, let's see what they're worth for scrap. Now the whole job took me, it's probably a half-hour job. They come apart very easily. This took me a little bit longer because I had to make my special tool, and I had to go and find the right bits and pieces. But if you're doing the whole lot in one go, they pull apart pretty easily. Not rusty, everything undoes really easily, which is nice. So we'll weigh it up. Well, the clean steel, this is all clean steel, it's actually just gone round the dial and it's just gone past the 0 again. So it's just over 10 kilos, not quite 11 I wouldn't think. So we'll call it 10 kilos of clean steel. So we'll do our notepad as usual, and then we get a good picture of where the value is. Clean steel, 10 kilos, at around 20 a kilo at the moment, 20 cents a kilo, so that's $2. Now the option of course is, if we do scrap them, to reuse this for something. I'm not sure what, but I always consider repurposing before I consider scrapping, because you know, it's only $2. It's a bit bulky, so it's not going to stack or store well, and it has got really nice vintage hammer tone paint, so something to consider. We may be able to reuse that if we end up scrapping them. Alright, what's next? There's not a great deal of insulated wire. It's just a whisker over 100 grams, and I'm not sure what it's worth at the moment, about $2.50 a kilo we'll say. So insulated wire, say 0.1 kilograms approximately, say 25 cents. So not a lot of that. Some little brass bits, mainly the fittings where the wire went in, and I did micro scrap all the little starter holders and the globe holders. Didn't take long to break apart, it was really easy. So we ended up with about 200 grams of brass, and that's been paying really well, about $5 a kilo lately. So brass 0.2, and that will be $1. The two ballasts weigh very well, pretty much 2 kilos, so about a kilo each, and I think they're paying pretty well. We'll just work on 50 cents a kilo at the moment for those. We'll call them transformers because that's essentially what they are. And 2 kilos, so that would be $1 as well if we work on 50 cents. Now we're being conservative because I think we'd do better on that at the moment. The cast aluminium is going to be the big percentage of it, and it does really weigh nicely because it's the nice thick chunks. We better, hang on, I'm not too good at stacking here, we better put the big bit on then. Well, you can see I probably failed building blocks at Kinder. Let's go back and put that one on there. So this is going to add up to a pretty nice weight. Cast aluminium isn't the best payer as far as aluminium goes. Extruded is much better, but so we'll work on $1 a kilo, and we've pretty well got 6 kilos there. So that's not bad. There's about $6. Cast alloy, or cast alloy, and we're working on $1. Oh no, sorry, that's 6 kilos. Oh, there's one little bit more. Takes it just over 6. So what else is left? Well, we have a tub full of nice hardware here. These springs are probably brass, but I think they're too good to just throw in the brass. I always save rubber grommets, and they're not even that hard, they're still usable. The connector blocks are good, nice and clean, very usable. A couple of bits of steel here that they're just handy workshop bits, you know, spacers. Too good to just throw in with the pressing steel. Lots of nice screws, but most of these, remember, also had that square drive, so may not be that useful, but there were some nice bolts. So, and a lot of little nice screws, and they're all the straight slot ones, which makes me think these lights date back to probably the 60s or so. Anyway, that's a handy lot. I'd estimate, let's say $5 for that lot, because if I was to put it in the shop, I reckon I'd get that. So, sundry hardware. We'll say $5. Now the only other tub I've got here is just the rubbish, really. The remainder of the starter holders, the tube holders. The cylinders had these O-rings around them. The capacitor could possibly go in dirty aluminium, but it's really not going to make much difference. Oh, and I forgot to mention there was a couple of things here where the wiring went in, that copper pipe. With brass on it, it wasn't worth trying to separate that. I'd probably just put that in dirty brass, and there's not enough there to weigh it up. So there's no real value in that lot. Now the only other thing we have left was the tubes and these big glass cylinders. Now I do have to declare that I broke one, and what I was doing very gently. I was just getting a hammer and tapping all around to see if that aluminium fitting would come off the glass. And well, yes it did, but not the way I kind of wanted. I thought that might have just been like a plaster of Paris, and I think it is, although possibly it feels a bit harder than that. Possibly it's some kind of fireproof cement powder or something. But anyway, the glass didn't just tap out, it actually broke, unfortunately. So if we were to use these tubes, they pretty well got to have those metal fittings on the end. But one thing this did show us is how thick the glass is, and it is quite thick. And they're very heavy because, that, as I said, the glass is thick, and they're quite long. They're standard fluoro tube length, which is what, 3 or 4 feet, I think, 3 foot something. Anyway, regardless of this, that was an exercise to see if I could get the aluminium off the end, and I'm not going to try it anymore. I think these tubes, though, may have a repurposing use. I don't know, throw your thoughts underneath in the comments, but I'm thinking they possibly could mount alongside your water tank as a sight, as a level sight to see how full your tank is. Maybe they could be an extremely long fish tank for racing fish that like to do laps. I have no idea. Whatever you reckon. They've got to have some use. We could quite easily just slide some Bud lights down them and have an interesting kind of light. So if we do scrap these lights, I reckon I'd ask $10 each for these, and people can make up their own mind what they'd use them for. Clearly we can't sell the broken one now, but let's allow $10 each, $20 on the notepad for those glass tubes if we end up scrapping more of these lights. So obviously that's going to be the best return then. The scrap value, let's get a total on that. $2.25, $3.25, $4.25, $10.25, $15.25. Now that in itself isn't too bad for about half an hour's work. And they were really fun to take apart. They went apart, you know, there was no seized nuts or bolts or screws. They all undid very easily. So as a scrap item, if we add in the $20, if I can sell those tubes at 10 each, you know, there's $35 for half an hour's work. Because I'm getting them for nothing, the guy's going to dump them all. So that's the worst case scenario, I think. I reckon I'm going to try and, if I can get them, if they haven't been taken by someone else, I'll try and grab the whole lot. I'll see how we go fitting LED tubes in them. And I reckon I'd sell them at $50 each, maybe even more. They'd really suit someone who wants that industrial look. So there we go. Thanks for watching all that. I won't finish this video just yet. I'll see if I can get the rest of them. I'll let you know, and I'll try and put some LED tubes in and just show you what it looks like before we wind this video up, if we can go that way. Very good. See you soon. Okay guys, I'm home today. I managed to scrounge 4 more of these lights. I couldn't get any more. The guy didn't want me to sell them in the shop, which is fair enough. I have to respect his views because, you know, it's handy being able to grab stuff for nothing from him occasionally. So he was happy to give me these. He didn't want anything for them. And I'm not going to scrap them because I'm going to try and retrofit some LED tubes, as I've mentioned. And I reckon I might save a couple of them for an extension I'm going to do on my workshop at home. And we might put a couple of them in our deck, because we've just got a new deck finished on the back of our house. And we haven't got any lighting under there yet. So I reckon that'll make a really good industrial type fluoro lights hanging in there. So next step is to round up some LED tubes and see if we can convert one to run on those. Another rainy day has allowed me to do some conversions on these lights. Now as you can see, one's going beautifully. I'll unplug this one now. The LED tubes they slip into the tubes, into the glass tubes beautifully. It's pretty easy to do. You just basically take the caps off this other end, as you saw when I was scrapping them. The starters are behind there, which you take out. Then you just slide the old tubes out, slide the new LED tubes in. They're a little bit fiddly to try and locate in the holders at the far end, but I actually had Christine doing this for me, and she worked it out and managed to do quite a few of them easily. Then you've got to replace the starter with a special fuse to allow the LEDs to run. And now they come on straight away. There's no flickering. They're a nice bright light. They're actually quite a lot cheaper to run than the fluoro tubes. So very chuffed with that. They work great. So I'll show you what I'm doing as far as just modifying the wiring. You don't need to do anything with the ballasts or anything else as far as replacing these fluoro tubes with LEDs. It's just a matter of changing the starter to a fuse, a special fuse. Now, I've taken the copper pipe things off. I've plugged the holes I don't want, and I've just installed a normal cord here. And what I'm using for these is basic computer cords, which I get through the e-waste all the time. So they're a 3-core wire, which is important because I have to run an earth wire on these. Being metal, it's a legal requirement to run an earth wire. So you can see I've just wired the active and the neutral into the terminal block, which feeds the power to the light, and the earth wire actually goes up. I'm not sure if you can see it there. It goes up and just mounts behind a screw into the aluminium housing. Now, I just fed the wire through the brass fittings. It was a little bit loose, and what I've used is just some rubber grommets. Now, when I scrap out, occasionally I scrap out DVD players, I always save the mounting rubbers because they're handy grommets. There's all sorts of different sizes, and all I did was put one between that compression fitting and did it up tight. It's made the cord super tight. I could even lift this thing up via this cord, I think, and it's also squashed the rubber around there, which has essentially waterproofed it. Not that it needs to be because it's undercover anyway. So I've just got a short cord on it because our electrician is going to put some outlets under our deck area, and I can just plug these lights straight in. Short cord, nice and neat, and we're going to be in business. So I'm going to actually do 5 of them for under our deck. So I'll hop to it, finish these off, get them hung, and I'll show you what it all looks like to finish off this video. Okay, just to finish off, here's our deck area, and I've got all these lights finished and hung up. It might be getting a little bit dark to see now, but they hang up there quite securely. I've got a chain on each corner, so there's 4 chains holding one up, and the short power cord goes into a light fitting that our local electrician organised for us. So they look really good. I'm very happy with them. We've had people over and they all comment and say, oh, they're really cool old light fittings. So it's a real industrial look. So I've got 2 on the far side, 2 there in the middle, and I put one over this end just above our fernery area, which is looking really nice now. Christine's done a great job there. So we've got the switches for them just in our studio room here. So I'll turn them on. And oops, other switch, there we go, that's those 2. Then the middle 2 work off a separate switch, and the last one is another switch again over the fernery. So it gives a great well lit area here. We can alternate if it's a particularly bad night for bugs. We can leave 2 off over the table, and but then again, one over the barbecue is really handy. So look, I'm really happy with them. They come up great. Didn't cost me anything, just a bit of conversion time, and they should last pretty well as long as I ever need them. And in the meantime, lots of people really like them. They just look great, I reckon, and they match all our rustic stuff we've got hanging around. And I'll do a separate video on everything we've included in our little deck area. We recently picked up this nice retro table and chairs, so we're loving this outdoor area. The only problem we've got is the birds get in here a bit, because Coco's food is often out here and the birds come and help themselves and they make a mess all over the deck. But anyway, it's a great outdoor living area, and I'm really happy with these lights. So thanks for watching. I've still got, down on just behind that water tank there, I've still got 3 put aside for my shed when I do a shed extension. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye.